Alright, let's talk about Bumblebee. Without a doubt, the biggest hot-button issue in the entirety of RWBY. To this day, the topic of Blake X Yang can cause a simple post to turn into a war zone. If you know anything about RWBY, you probably know these two girls' faces, and the mobs of angry people rooting for them and against them in terms of being shipped together. People have big opinions about these two gals, and that's why I put them on so many thumbnails. Whee! Now, in general, I'm fine with the ship. It's been a thing I've wanted to see confirmed on my bingo board for several years, and when it finally happened in Volume 9, I celebrated. So if you see a comment of someone claiming I don't like Bumblebee, make sure to tell them they're an idiot who couldn't even make it 3 minutes into the video. But I do have some problem with the bees, and in all honesty, most of my problems actually come from outside of the show. See, if you watch RWBY in a bubble and ignore everything from the fandom, you might be confused as to how this simple little ship could cause such a stir. They're just a sort of generally cute couple. What's the problem here? Well, let's start with...
I think I love you.
I love you too.
Importantly, this does not mean all bee shippers. Honestly, I think the majority of people who ship Bumblebee are totally fine, normal folks who are cool and probably can host entertaining dinner parties or something. But you know how it works. It doesn't matter how cool the majority is. It's that extra loud, extra obnoxious minority that always gives the whole crowd a negative look. The bad bee shippers, commonly known as wasps in the RWBY fandom, get it? They're like bees, but meaner. The bad bee shippers aren't just the people who make shipping Blake and Yang their whole personality. Honestly, I don't really have any problems with that. Do what makes you happy. What makes the wasps bad is how aggressive they are about it. The wasps... I can't say wasp. The wasps are the ones who will invade a conversation unrelated or tangentially related to Blake and or Yang and pop off with aggression. They'll be argumentative and accusatory right from the get-go. In general, this is fine, I suppose. Being a super angry bee shipper will mostly just make people not want to engage with you. Like, it's cool if you ship the bees, but if you're forcefully inserting the topic of their ship into conversations, all you're doing is killing the mood and making people not want to talk to you. The worst part is, it'll make people not want to talk about RWBY in general. Obsessively rabid fans like this are off-putting. If you're already in the fandom, getting jumped by a rabid bee shipper can make you hesitant about bringing up the show. And if you're not watching the show yet, seeing these things will just deter people from wanting to watch the show in the first place. Really, the worst thing the wasps do is accuse people who don't like the ship of being homophobic. It's one thing to be a tad too obsessive about the idea of two fictional cartoon girls kissing each other. It's another to start making real, harmful, real-life accusations over it. RWBY's fan space is now infamous because of how the bee shippers would accuse others of homophobia or misogyny just because they didn't support Blake X Yang. It wouldn't matter if the person was LGBT themselves or shipped the characters with other different female characters. Not liking the bees was all the rabid fans needed to start throwing around real harmful attacks on your character. I'm not sure why this happened either. I'm sure there must have been some actual homophobia at some point. Unfortunately, that bigotry still persists. But for the wasps but for the wasps to blanketly state all people who didn't like the bees was homophobic definitely felt like an unusual leap. And if I had to guess, I think it's because Blake's most popular other ships that isn't with Yang tend to be with Adam and Sun. It was a little up in the air on what exactly Blake and Adam's relationship was really like before the events of the show. Hell, even to this day, people still debate over it. Blake calls Adam a mentor.
I had a partner named Adam. More of a mentor, actually.
But he gives her pet names like Darling.
Hello, my darling.
In the comics, they basically confirm their relationship was romantic, and Ilya's words imply Blake was attracted to him beforehand.
But I guess back then you were just too busy falling for Adam to notice.
But like I said, it's still a bit unclear. And as for Sun, Blake spent tons of time with Sun. A ton of romantically coded time with him. They blush at each other, they wink at each other. He's literally the only character she even gets to interact with for 2 whole volumes, stapled to her like an accessory while in Menagerie. So, because of all that, a lot of people ship Blake x Sun, and for a very long time, it seemed like Blake was actually leaning more towards a relationship with him in the long run. But then Blake kept talking about Yang with a wavery, sad little voice. Then Sun left the squad in volume 6, and suddenly Blake and Yang are glued together now. So I'm not surprised a few Black Sun shippers felt salty over watching their preferred ship literally get pulled out from underneath them. So I think they were at the front and center when it came to shooting down the notion of Yang and Blake being an item. And something I've discussed in much greater detail in this video about representation, Rooster Teeth did a pretty garbage job establishing Blake and Yang's interest in each other, or in other women in general. We see Yang drooling over boys, and Blake goes to the prom with a boy, so for the girls to very suddenly start being interested in each other 6 volumes in, it definitely feels like this was kind of coming out of nowhere. I can only assume Black Sun shippers argued that Blake and Yang didn't even seem like they had any interest in the same sex, and that's what sparked the bad B shippers of accusing any detractors of the ship as homophobic. Like I said, pretty annoying, but they're just the most extreme versions of the pro-B shippers. But this is just one side of the drama. Like I mentioned, there's also...
Forget it. Let's just head back. But what about... We're fine.
These people don't get a cute nickname in the fandom. Sorry. We could have called them toads. Get it? 'Cause frogs eat bees? Or something like that? You know what I mean. You're smart. I trust you. Yes, the detractors of the ship. And what I say here might be controversial, but honestly, these two sides are exactly the same as each other. Yeah, the majority of people who don't like the ship are nice, cool, chill people, but then there's that very loud, very annoying minority. All that stuff I said about the wasps, it's all true for the opposite side too. People who will insert themselves into a RWBY conversation just to talk about how much they hate this ship. It's usually pretty annoying and a mood killer. Cause the real difference is, like, the normal people who ship Blake and Yang exist shipping Blake and Yang. The normal people who don't, just don't engage with the topic. Unless the topic is brought up first, but most people who aren't into the ship never even mention it, and things are chill and fine this way. But just like the wasps, the toads will be hyper-aggressive about bringing up their disdain for the ship, and it's like, come on, dude, read the room. They're at their most obnoxious when they go out of their way to try and rain on a B shipper's parade. Like, a B shipper will just be minding their own business, making fan art or an AMV or something, and a toad will roll up and yell and be generally an ass. Like, it's fine if you don't like the ship, but don't go trying to ruin other people's days over it. It's just 2 anime characters standing next to each other. If someone likes it and you don't, just don't engage with it. Find something that does make you happy instead. Real talk, far too much of the RWBY fandom and the internet culture in general is just people wallowing in places they don't agree with, rather than finding spaces of things that they actually enjoy. Anyways, usually the people who don't ship Blake and Yang are pretty run-of-the-mill, quietly disinterested at best, annoying spam commenter you can easily block at worst. But the ones that are unique and that really make no sense to me are the ones throwing these words around. The bees ruined the show. Truly, I cannot wrap my mind around this statement. I know the English language. I went to college. What the hell does this even mean? There is so much to RWBY as a show. So much. And quite frankly, so many bigger and more prominent flaws or important elements that makes the show what it is. And you're telling me the thing that ruined it for you is 2 of the main characters actually talking to each other a bit more than usual? Really? This ruined the show for you? The dumbest thing is the bees are barely there. Blake and Yang barely frickin' talk. They don't start overtly flirting until volume 6, but even then, it's so bare bones. Absolutely minimal. The fandom was so starved for the ship to actually get acknowledged that they treat literal crumbs as pillars of the ship's foundation. Crumbs by their own admission, too. These 2 girls barely interact. And you know what? Most characters in RWBY barely interact. These characters just do not talk to each other. Unless someone is barfing out boring lore or exposition, these characters do not talk to each other at all, ever. So the fact Blake and Yang actually do sometimes get to talk to each other like actual human beings and not like walking plot machines, whether I like the ship or not, I'm going to classify that as a win for the show. It's next to nothing in terms of existing, and that is what ruined the show for you. There's the whole plot about the Brother Gods, Salem and her Council of Evil, Ozpin and his allies, all of whom keep betraying him over and over, relics and maidens and magic. They're trying to save the world, they're trying to stay alive, and we've watched several characters break down and struggle and die. But what ruined the show was the angry blonde and the cat girl kissing once. That was it. Oh man, what a great peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Except the plate has a chip in it, so that means the whole meal is ruined now. Grow up, oh my god. So that's the fandom side of things, but I'm going to be real here. I think there's really one group in particular who really dropped the ball the most when it comes to Bumblebee.
Blake, are you sure you didn't hit your head? Oh, I'm Yang.
So, Rooster Teeth is gone. It's shut down. So conversations about CRWBY or how Rooster Teeth ran the show is always weird to me now, because like, it doesn't matter anymore. They're dead anyways. But I still think this is an important topic, and I figure, let's start a conversation about this. So like I said in the beginning, this is a very well-known topic about the show and its fandom. It's been a huge discussion and debate for a very, very long time. Even in the earlier volumes of RWBY, the bees and shipping could cause issues in the fandom. And I really do think CRWBY and Rooster Teeth as a company failed when it came to settling down these problems. So RT was always very connected with its audience. They have their own convention and everything. Had a convention. Fans submitted artwork and designs and stuff made it into the show often. The higher-ups always had a read on the pulse of the fan space, and it's not like they were afraid to talk about these things either. They were the ones teasing Blake x Yang for all those years. Barbara and Aaron openly talked about how they ship the girls, and they lean into that ship a lot. And I think that's totally fine. Hell, I actually encourage this. Do you know how rare it is to see voice actors and creators actually talking about their preferred ships? I think it's cool, and it's a cool treat for the audience too, in theory. But at the same time, they must have known the bees were a problem within the fan space. Hell, I remember accounts of people talking about how their cosplays got destroyed because angry bee shippers would get into brawls, during RTX even. There's no way they didn't know these sorts of things were happening, were causing really big problems in the fan space. And I think they really should have publicly said something to try to quell the shipping wars, especially with how this fandom tends to really rely on the word of God when it comes to the show. The fans always take whatever CRWBY says super seriously, and I think RT really should have put in the effort to try to control these problems more. If the VAs can sit there and ship tease, they could also afford to take some time to tell people not to be such big assholes over shipping the two cartoon characters. Especially because, like, Gooseworks has already stepped up to do this. Gooseworks, the creator of the Amazing Digital Circus, after only the first episode aired, had publicly stated how ship wars was not cool and shouldn't be tolerated in the fan space. And you know what? More companies and showrunners need to start doing this. In recent years, I've seen several shows leaning into the idea of teasing the concept of shipping.
Oh no! Our ship!
It's sad that this ship is stuck.
And yeah, it's cute that they're referencing their fan spaces, but ship wars have kind of gotten really out of hand. It's not just a RWBY problem either, it's just the fan space I'm most familiar with. We as fans can do a lot. We can block people, we can try and explain ourselves to others, but we can only go so far. I think creators need to start stepping up and addressing the problems of their fan spaces publicly. After all, they're making the show. It's their creation, so they're they're the ones cultivating their fan space too. And if you don't want your garden overgrown with weeds, you need to keep on top of pulling them out as early as you can. So this is the end of the video, and before I get to my $10 patrons, I want to say, if I see any kind of homophobia or bigotry in my comments, I will block you immediately. I do not care. I do not tolerate that stuff. Be a cretin somewhere else. Be a troglodyte, bigot, loser somewhere else on the internet, because I do not tolerate it. Shout out to my $10 patrons, you're all amazing. Andrew, Valhalla Knight, Chamomile, Classy Critic, Noah Perkins, Sunny Shy, Genital War Thunder, Jake, Amber, Hype Man, Isaiah, Scaring Crows, Not All That Evil, Messiah Complex, Jacob, Ben's Sketchbook, Rain, Omega Fighter, Trash, Wild Pilot, Josh, Twisty, Juan, Bunkin Duncan, Lycan99, Hoodie Angel, Ranger, Hut Mutt Butt, Cloudy Days, The Enigma, C1 Trooper, Sean, and Primo Rune. I hope you like this video. So yeah, I think it's an important thing to discuss, the idea of the creators helping to cultivate the fan space, but let me know what you think. Also, I just was tired of seeing things like, ew, Bumblebee ruined the show. But I didn't want it to be one-sided, because like, we need to be honest, both sides have been bad. You know, there's been like, it makes me think of House of the Dragon, where you don't even remember how it all started. You just know that it's bad on both sides. Comparing RWBY's fan space to House of the Dragon. So anyway, let me know what you think. There's a lot of important topics being discussed. Any and all thoughts and opinions, I would really love to see them, so long as they stay respectful in the comments below. Please don't argue with each other about the bees. Please. I think I made it clear that's what I don't want. Any and all thoughts and opinions, I'd love to see them, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.